internet logo will work, because if I'm a criminal and selling falsified medicines on the internet, why wouldn't I falsify the logo on my webpage?
Well, you would. The way it works, and has worked in the UK for some years, is that there is a maintained reference that you can go to, and you can say, is Alpha Pharmaceuticals with this number a real supplier or not? Now, I know there will have to be safeguards in place to maintain that, but at least it gives the patient some sort of way of cross-check.
So there's an independent
an independent cross-check. And I guess there would have to be some way of policing that as well. But it's quite interesting, just an aside, Operations Pangea, which again the UK had the privilege of initiating some 6 years ago, which now involves 100 nations worldwide. Over the last 2 years, it's resulted in 30,000 internet sites being shut down. Now, I don't mean they haven't popped up somewhere else. None of us naive enough to know that wouldn't happen. But it is a major initiative, which is now coordinated by Interpol, and has a major impact on that fact, on those issues.
Gerald, Brian, can you speak to how EDQM's vision of a traceability system in Europe and the ESM model are going to come together?
Yeah, the answer is no, I can't. But between friends, I'll make some comments if you wish, which I probably should. I'm aware, as you are, that there are 2 parallel systems being developed by EDQM and by FPIA and related groups. I'm aware of that. EDQM got some financing separately and FPIA from industry. They both will claim to have a repository. I'm not able to comment on how that will pan out. Next year it has to be decided. If we're going to go along that route, it has to be decided which is the repository of choice. What I would say, without being critical of EDQM, is that clearly the FPIA approach has what is needed, which is the input of the owners of the information, namely industry. So we will see what happens.
Okay.
One question in regard to the safety features. When I look to one thing everybody should have in his pocket, the normal money has up to 25 different security features. In a lot of cases, even we users of the money don't know all these security features they are on. And still, we have a huge counterfeit problem on the money market. So are there certain aspects which makes it for the user at the end more transparent in cases of medicine, how they really could rely on, or is it just that you enforce industry that they do something and everybody is just doing it in the way he wants to?
Yeah, well, simply, I think the answer is that the user cannot be expected to properly manage this personally. Tamper evident features are straightforward enough and will help the user to know whether a legitimate pack has been opened or not. In terms of other safety features, you're right. I mean, your companies for many years have been putting covert security features onto their packs. These are covert and they're not obvious to the user. My own view is that industry and regulators have to work at securing the supply chain. So we have to be in a position where we say to patients, as we are now, to a large degree, buy your medicines through the legitimate supply chain and you can be confident in them. Now, there will be people in the audience who are saying, well, you don't know the extent of issues that you haven't found, and there's an element of truth in that. But nonetheless, from all the evidence we have, if you go into a European pharmacy, and I would hope this is true of US pharmacies, although I'm not able to comment in quite the same way, but if you go into a European pharmacy, you have almost complete confidence that the product you will be given is the product the doctor prescribed. And we need to maintain that. And that I think is key. The patient shouldn't have to think about, is the product real or not? If they get it through a legitimate source, they should be confident that it is.
Maria from Hopion. Can you detail a bit more what you said about the written confirmations and the criteria that has been used to issue them?
Yeah, I mean, if you take the biggest supplier from a UK perspective, and I suspect from a global perspective, in developed countries, it's India. 25% of all medicines in the UK are made in India. Now, the CDSCO, the country's regulatory group within India, are undertaking inspections, and they believe that their written confirmations are based on real data. Now, I'll be there at the beginning of December, and one of the questions that we need to ask is, how complete is that activity? I suspect that because they are starting a process, there must be some room for improvement within that process. But nonetheless, there's no doubt in my mind they're treating it seriously, and they have the intent to make it more effective, and I think we need to support them in their efforts to do that.
Any others?
I had a fair bit to do with China. China, a year or so ago, introduced its own new GMP standard, and had quite an aggressive program, for introducing that program across China. A program that they themselves have indicated would result in some factories, a large number of factories, shutting down because they can't meet the standards. So that relates to finished products, but I believe in respect to actives, they are seeking to do the right thing, but it's a massive country with large numbers of factories, as we saw, 400 or more that supply Europe at the moment. I think we have to work with them to get where they need to be, but we need to be realistic. But what I would say, and perhaps this is worth saying, the existing provisions have not gone. Your need as companies to verify the source of your active substances is stronger than ever. The requirement within the QP declaration has been strengthened. There are additional requirements in terms of supply chain verification. So what we're talking about in terms of the written confirmation is something on top of what already exists and has been strengthened. So the cumulative effect should be one of giving more confidence, not less. Yeah, thank you.
Gerald, one maybe final question, and it might be to the audience as well. We're talking serialization of the finished pharmaceutical, correct?
Yes, sir.
But we've also seen the incidents in the bulk API or the key raw materials going. That's not, to my understanding, part of the regulation yet.
Not at all. In fact, even for the finished products, the Falsified Medicines Directive only specifies with respect to prescription-only medicines and certain non-prescription medicines that are at high risk. You know, I don't know, if Viagra is an over-the-counter product, I guess it would be in that group. You'll forgive me, Pfizer, but makes me want to go forward. but I suspect it. Sorry?
Happens at every meeting.
That's right.
But I guess
so you're not even all medicines, not all finished products, let alone active substances, frankly.
But again, going back to what Guy and Brian started off the meeting about that supply chain security and trying to find those opportunities for adulteration are usually financially motivated. The bulk that we're dealing with, the product movement from the raw materials is becoming more and more a challenge. We, the industry, or we, Rx-360, don't have the solution yet, but I can see that's the next wave, is keep pushing it further into the supply chain.
Yeah, and I think some really, it's difficult. You'll forgive me for saying something that's a little imprecise, but I think it emphasises the need for really intelligent risk assessment. You know, what is the opportunity? We've already mentioned some of this. What is the opportunity for the criminal to to exploit a certain situation? And what should we do to mitigate that risk? It's not complete, but I think that's a key. And it's not something, I mean, regulators do have a role in this, but I think industry has an even bigger role because you understand your product.